When I was 7 years old, I stood on the porch of a house I didn't recognize, holding a backpack that wasn't mine, next to a woman who had stopped calling herself my mother somewhere between mile 4 and 5 of our last car ride. "This is just for a little while," she said, her voice sugar-sweet, the kind of tone adults use when they're lying to kids but don't want to be caught. She kissed my cheek like she still deserved to and walked back to her car, never looking back. The people who opened the door weren't smiling. They weren't even confused. They looked tired, like they had seen this before, like they had been warned. I would learn later that she had called them 2 nights earlier, asking if they could watch me while she took care of something important. Their names were Linda and Gus. I'd never met them before. Mom called them old friends, but Linda once accidentally referred to me as, "That girl Melanie dropped off." That told me everything I needed to know. The first few nights I thought it was some kind of test. That if I behaved perfectly, washed my own dishes, said thank you, didn't Krisht come back. But weeks passed. School started again. My name was quietly added to the 3rd grade roster at the local elementary. Linda bought me a uniform. Gus built me a little shelf in the hallway for my shoes. There was no mention of her. No calls. No postcards. No return. It's funny what a child will normalize. I got good at blending in. At pretending like Linda and Gus were always part of my life. When kids at school asked where I lived, I said, "With my aunt and uncle," even though we shared no blood. When they asked where my mom was, I said, "Working overseas." I thought that sounded less embarrassing than, I don't know. But even lies you tell yourself start to crack when you're old enough to ask better questions. I was 10 when I finally dared to ask Linda, "Did she pay you to take me?" She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "She left $200 in the mailbox." That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until my chest burned. $200. That was what I was worth. The twist? Linda and Gus weren't bad people. They weren't warm either, but they weren't cruel. They fed me, clothed me, made sure I did my homework. Gus taught me how to change a tire. Linda taught me how to make spaghetti without burning the pan. They weren't parents, but they were consistent. Still, every time the phone rang, a part of me hoped it was her. That she would say it was all a mistake. That she would come pick me up, crying, holding a stuffed animal I'd left behind in her trunk. But every time it was a telemarketer or someone from church. She didn't even check on me. Until one day she did. I was 16, working part-time at a grocery store, stocking shelves after school. A woman walked in wearing large sunglasses and a headscarf like she was trying not to be seen. I recognized her instantly. My mother. She was thinner. Her hair was darker. But it was her. She didn't say hi. Didn't ask how I was. Just walked up to me in aisle 7 and said, "You look good. I knew you'd be okay." I stood there frozen, holding a can of corn like it was a grenade. "I just needed time," she continued. "You were a lot back then. I wasn't ready to be a mom. But look at you. You made it." I didn't answer. Because what the hell do you say to someone who abandoned you and then congratulates themselves on how well you turned out without them? She said, "Maybe we could get coffee sometime." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You don't get to drink coffee with me." Then I walked away. I didn't even clock out. Linda and Gus didn't ask why I came home early. They probably guessed. I didn't see her again. Not for another 4 years. This time she sent a Facebook message. "Hey sweetie. Long time. I'm getting married next month. Would love for you to be there. I'm sure my fiancé would love to meet you." I stared at the screen like it was written in another language. She didn't even say sorry. Didn't ask if I was alive. Just dropped into my inbox like we had a relationship she hadn't destroyed. Against all logic, I clicked her profile. She looked happy. Healthy. Pictures of brunches, beaches, selfies and expensive sunglasses. No mention of a daughter. No hint I'd ever existed. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. That felt too generous. A week later she messaged again. "I understand if you're upset, but I'm really trying to move forward. I hope you can be part of that." Part of her moving forward. Like I was some piece of unfinished business. I replied one sentence. "You left me with strangers and never looked back. I don't owe you peace." She didn't respond. The wedding photos were posted 2 weeks later. I wasn't invited. But one picture caught my attention. Her new husband had a toddler in his arms. So she got her second chance. With someone else. And it broke something in me I didn't even know was still fragile. But here's the most unexpected part of this story. A twist, if you will. It happened on my 22nd birthday. I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just, to my daughter. Inside, pages and pages of apologies. She said she had postpartum depression. That she had no support. That her own mother had been abusive and she never learned how to love. She said she was sorry for leaving me in the hands of practical strangers. And that she had spent years trying to forgive herself. She ended with, I understand if you never want to speak to me again. But I hope someday you can. I held that letter for hours. Reread every word. Then I placed it back in the envelope, slid it into a shoebox, and put it under my bed. Because forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a decision you have to make over and over again. And some days I want to forgive her. But other days I still feel 7 years old on that porch, waiting for a car that never turned around. Would you? Would you forgive her? Because I still don't know if I ever fully can. I didn't tell Linda or Gus about the letter. I don't know why. Maybe I felt like they'd been forced to take on so much of my pain. They didn't deserve to carry any more of it. Or maybe I didn't want them to see that I was still holding on, that even after everything, I still wanted something from her. But they noticed. I could tell. Gus knocked on my bedroom door 2 nights later and left a slice of pie on a napkin. He didn't say anything, but the pie was warm, and he only made pie when something was wrong. I sat on the edge of my bed and ate every crumb. That was how we said, I see you, in that house. Not with words but with food and silence and staying. A month passed. I started graduate school. New city, new apartment, new life. But the letter stayed with me, tucked into the same shoebox that now lived on a shelf in my closet. I didn't read it again, but I couldn't throw it away either. Not yet. Then one night in October, while scrolling mindlessly on Instagram, I saw her face again. A photo tagged in someone else's post, her, sitting at a cafe smiling, a baby in her lap. Another baby. Not the toddler from her wedding photos. A new one. She had a family now. A whole other life. And none of it included me. I stared at that photo for a long time. Something about the way she held that child, so tender, so casual, made me feel like a ghost. Like I'd never existed. Like I'd been erased. So I did something reckless. I sent her a message. Just one word. Why? She replied within the hour. Because I didn't know how to be your mother. I was scared. And I thought you'd be better off without me. I stared at the message. My hands trembled. My mouth tasted like rust. You were wrong, I typed. I wasn't better off. I cried every night. I waited. I begged strangers to love me. And I still wonder what I did wrong. She didn't reply for a long time. Then, I'm so sorry. I will never stop being sorry. I wanted to believe her. But I didn't. Not fully. Because apologies don't unmake abandonment. They don't refill birthday balloons that never came. Or put your name on the school pickup list. Or teach you how to braid your own hair. I didn't message her again. I muted her account. Not because I wanted her gone, but because every time I saw her smiling face, I felt like someone was pressing a bruise that never healed. Then one day Linda called. Her voice was tight, thin. Your mother's in the hospital, she said. I froze. Apparently, her new baby had been born premature. And in the stress and chaos of it all, she collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. She was stable now but alone. Her husband was out of town on business, and her mother had refused to come. And suddenly they called me. The daughter she left behind. Because trauma has a cruel sense of irony. I told Linda I'd think about it. Then I sat in my car for 2 hours, staring at my steering wheel, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I didn't owe her anything. Not a visit. Not a single minute of my time. But curiosity is a wicked thing. So is compassion sometimes. I went. The hospital was small, the kind with dull lights and an overused vending machine in the lobby. I walked past the nurse's station, said her full name Melanie Foster, and was led to room 214. She looked different. Pale. Hollowed out. But when she saw me, her eyes filled with tears instantly. You came, she whispered. I didn't answer. I just stood in the doorway, arms folded across my chest, heart thudding like a war drum. I didn't think you would, she added. I didn't think I would either, I said quietly. There was a long silence. Then she reached for something on the side table and held it out to me. A photo. Of me. 5 years old. Missing a front tooth. Dressed as a princess for Halloween. I kept this, she said. Everywhere I lived. Every time I moved. I never let it go. That photo broke me. Because I didn't even remember it being taken. I don't remember her being there. But apparently at least for that one day she had been. I sat down. Not close but not far either. We talked for 2 hours. About nothing and everything. Her new kids. My old wounds. She told me about the day she left me. Said she cried all the way home. Then drank herself numb for 3 days. Said she thought I'd be better off with someone more stable. I wasn't, I said flatly. I survived. That's not the same. She nodded, tears falling silently. I know that now. Before I left, she asked if she could hug me. I said no. But I promised I'd check in tomorrow. And I did. Not because I forgave her. But because I could finally look at her without wanting to scream. It became a routine. A few minutes each day. Her in a hospital bed. Me in a folding chair. Sometimes we just sat in silence. Sometimes we argued. Once I asked her to tell me the truth about my father. He didn't want a kid either, she said. I thought if I kept you maybe he'd stay. But he didn't. And you punished me for that, I said. She didn't deny it. 2 weeks later she was discharged. I didn't help her pack. I didn't meet the baby. But I watched from across the street as her husband picked her up, kissed her cheek, and placed their child gently in her arms. She never looked over. Not once. I thought that would be the end. A full circle. A quiet closing of a very loud chapter. But life doesn't believe in clean endings. 2 months later, she emailed me a scanned copy of a legal document. She was naming me as the guardian of her children in the event of her death. I read it 3 times. My throat went dry. I called her immediately. Are you out of your mind? I asked. I trust you, she said. You're the most responsible person I know. You don't know me, I snapped. You didn't raise me. You left me. I know, she said. But I also know I broke something in you. And you still showed up. You could have walked away. But you didn't. That's what makes you different. I didn't know whether to scream or sob. She wanted me to be responsible for the people she chose to keep. After throwing me away. That night I went for a walk and ended up outside the old house Linda and Gus's place. I stood there for almost an hour, staring at the porch where it all began. Linda came outside eventually. You want to come in? She asked. I nodded. She poured me tea. Gus turned down the TV. They didn't ask why I was there. They didn't need to. I think she wants me to raise her kids if something happens, I said, my voice brittle. Linda blinked slowly. Do you want to? No. Then don't, she said simply. You don't owe her anything. But what about them? The kids? Linda sighed. You're not their mother. And you're not a martyr. You have a life to live. A big one. That night I made a decision. I emailed her back and said I couldn't accept. That I hoped her husband had family. That I wasn't the answer to her broken pieces. That I was still gluing together my own. She never replied. But she also never tried to push it. And for the first time in my life I felt untethered. Free. Like I didn't need to earn anything anymore. Not her love. Not her guilt. Not even her understanding. I was no longer the abandoned kid. I was the adult who had learned how to stay. Even when others couldn't. The next few weeks were strangely quiet. I thought I'd feel relieved, freed, even after sending that email. After setting the boundary. But instead I just felt hollow. Like I'd locked a door behind me and thrown away the key. Only to realize I was still inside the house. I kept thinking about the kids. Not because I wanted to take them in, but because I couldn't stop imagining their future. Would she be different with them? Would she hold on this time? Or would history repeat itself the moment things got hard? And if it did, would anyone show up? That question haunted me. Meanwhile, life moved forward like it didn't care that mine had been cracked open again. Grad school demanded papers, professors assigned group projects, classmates hosted parties I never went to. I smiled when I had to, answered when called on, and kept my shoebox in the closet like a quiet shrine to the girl I used to be. One Thursday, I came home to find an envelope taped to my door. No name, no stamp. Just my apartment number in neat handwriting. Inside was a drawing. A child's drawing. Crayon on printer paper. 3 stick figures. One tall woman with long hair labeled Mommy. One smaller labeled Sam. The name of her toddler, and one labeled Baby Eli. Above them, scrawled in crooked letters, it said, "My family." My stomach flipped. No note. No explanation. Just this. I looked around the hallway, but it was empty. Had she been here? Or worse, had she sent them? I called Linda in a panic. "She's crossing a line," I said. "This isn't okay." "She's trying to force a connection," Linda replied. "Trying to make you feel guilty." "It's working," I whispered. Linda was silent for a beat. Then she said, "You're not a bad person for wanting distance. You're not cruel for protecting yourself." I hung up and stared at the drawing again. Part of me wanted to rip it in half. Another part wanted to frame it and place it beside the one photo I had of myself with her as a child. I didn't do either. I folded it carefully and slid it into the same shoebox, right next to her letter. Because that's what trauma teaches you. How to carry things without dropping them, even when they're on fire. A week later, she called me. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I was tired of running. Maybe I wanted to hear her say something real for once. "Hey," she said, voice soft, almost careful. "Did you get the drawing?" I did. There was a pause. "I didn't mean to upset you," she said. I thought you might want to know what they look like." "I don't," I replied, and surprised myself with the honesty of it. She exhaled slowly. "Okay." There was a longer silence. "I'm trying," she said finally. "I really am. I go to therapy. I'm sober now. I cook dinner. I read parenting books. I do everything I didn't know how to do with you." "Good for them," I said, and again the bitterness surprised me. "I know I hurt you," she said. "I know I failed you. But I didn't stop loving you." "That's not what love is," I replied. "You don't get to love someone only when it's convenient." And for once she didn't argue. She just cried. Quietly. On the other end of the line. I didn't comfort her. Because I'd spent too many years being the one who needed comfort and never got it. Before we hung up, she asked me a question I'll never forget. Would it have been better if I'd never come back at all? I didn't answer. 'Cause I didn't know. After that call, I went through a strange emotional purge. I boxed up old birthday cards I'd saved, journal entries written in childish loops. Even a stuffed rabbit I'd slept with every night until I was 12. I stared at them all on the floor of my apartment, and felt like I was staring at someone else's life. Then I drove to a lake 2 hours away, the one Gus had taken me to once when I was 13 and crying after a school play no one came to see. I parked, walked to the water, and I let the wind take the pain. Not literally, I didn't throw anything in. I didn't burn letters or scream into the sky. I just stood there. Let the silence swallow me. Let myself feel the grief without drowning in it. And then I drove home. That night I wrote her an email. I told her that I didn't hate her, that I didn't love her either, that maybe one day we could be something, but I didn't know what that was yet. I told her not to send drawings or gifts or guilt, just space and patience. She replied the next day. "Thank you for your honesty. I will give you space. I'll be here if you ever want to reach out. I won't expect it, but I'll hope." It was the first time she didn't ask me for something. Felt like a step. Not a bridge. Not a homecoming. But a step. I saved the email, closed my laptop, and cried for the first time in months. Not because I was broken, but because I was finally slowly healing. Fast forward 6 months. I graduated. I didn't tell her. Didn't invite her. Linda and Gus came. Sat in the front row. Took blurry pictures. Gus wore a tie so loud it almost distracted from my nerves. After the ceremony, I spotted them outside with a small sign that said, "We're proud of you, kid." I hugged them both so hard I thought I'd crack their ribs. Then as we were walking to the car, Gus pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo. It was me, 7 years old, standing on their porch with my too big backpack, staring into the camera like I didn't know whether to smile or cry. I took that the day she dropped you off, Gus said. Thought maybe one day you'd want to remember how far you've come. I looked at the picture. The girl in it had no idea what was ahead of her. No idea how many nights she'd cry, or how many times she'd think she wasn't enough. But she made it. Somehow she made it. I keep that photo in my wallet now. Not because I want to remember the pain, but because I want to remember the strength. I still don't talk to my mother. Not often. Once in a while she'll send a messagey a happy birthday, a short update. I read them. Sometimes I even reply. But I don't let her back in. Not all the way. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without bleeding. Sometimes people ask me about my parents. I say I was raised by two people who didn't have to love me but did anyway. And a mother who gave me life but not a home. And somehow I'm okay with that now. Because I built my own. And it's solid. And it's mine. And no one gets to walk away from it and come back whenever they want. I make the rules now. I choose who stays. A year passed. Then another. I moved to a new city. Got a job in a nonprofit working with foster youth kids who reminded me too much of myself. Kids who asked questions I used to whisper in the dark. Why didn't they want me? Did I do something wrong? If I had been better, would they have stayed? I didn't always have the answers. But I had honesty. I had presence. And sometimes that was enough. It wasn't until I was 26 that I saw her again. Not by plan. Not by choice. I was giving a talk at a youth shelter, sharing my story. Nothing graphic, just enough to make the kids feel seen. I mentioned the porch, the backpack, the years that followed. Afterward, a woman approached me from the back of the room, holding a paper cup of coffee and a small, nervous smile. It was her. She looked older now, softer. Her hair was streaked with silver, her posture no longer proud. I wasn't sure if I should come, she said, but I saw your name on the flyer. I stared at her. Not with hatred. Not with forgiveness either. Just curiosity. You live here? I asked. She nodded. Moved last year. After the divorce. My eyebrows rose. He left. No, she said. I did. And that was the first moment I realized how much she'd changed. Or maybe how much I had. We walked outside. She offered to buy me a drink. I declined. But I didn't leave. She told me about her kids. How Sam was in kindergarten. How Eli liked to take things apart just to see how they worked. She said she tried to be honest with them. Told them once very gently that they had a big sister. That maybe one day they'd meet her. I asked if they knew what she did to me. She didn't flinch. Yes, she said. Not everything. But enough. I don't lie to them. Not anymore. That hit harder than I expected. She asked about my work. I told her what I did. Her eyes welled with tears. You're helping the very people I failed to fight for. That's powerful. I didn't respond. I didn't want her to paint me like a saint. I wasn't. But I also wasn't the same girl who stood on that porch, waiting for a car that never came back. I asked her why she left that day, why she chose strangers over a child who just wanted to be loved. She looked down at her hands. I don't have a good reason, she said. Just excuses. Fear. Shame. I thought I'd ruin you. That you'd be better with anyone but me. And when did you know you were wrong? The first night, she whispered. The second I drove away. That was the first time I cried in front of her. Not because I believed her completely, but because hearing the words still mattered. We didn't make promises that day. We didn't agree to start over or pretend the years hadn't happened. But I let her hug me. And that was something. Months passed. We didn't talk often, but there was a rhythm now. An occasional message. A photo of the boys. A check-in when storms came through my city. She never pushed. Never asked for more than I was ready to give. And eventually I agreed to meet the kids. It was awkward. Sweet. Quiet. Sam gave me a drawing of a spaceship. Eli showed me how he could say the alphabet backward. They didn't call me sister. They just called me by my name. And somehow that was perfect. We went to the park. Ate ice cream. watched ducks fight over stale bread. And for a few hours I wasn't the girl who had been left behind. I was just a woman watching two small boys run in circles and laugh until they hiccuped. When we got back to the house, she pulled me aside. "I'll never be able to fix what I broke," she said. "But thank you for letting me witness your life." I nodded. Witnessing is all it can be. She smiled, sad but real. "That's enough." Years later at Gus's funeral she came. Linda had called her. Said, "He was more of a father than you'll ever know." She came alone. Stood at the back. Wore a navy dress and no makeup. Didn't speak. Just stood with her hands folded and eyes closed. After the service, she waited until most people had left. Then she walked over to Linda and said, "Thank you for loving her." Linda nodded. "You lost the right to say her a long time ago." But I stepped forward. "It's okay," I said. "She knows." Linda softened. Took my hand. That night, I sat with Gus's photo and cried. Not just for the man who built me a shelf for my shoes, but for all the people who showed up, stayed, and never made me feel like too much. I wrote a letter to Gus. In it, I told him that the little girl he took in learned how to become a woman who forgave, even when she didn't forget. That I was okay. That I had made peace with ghosts. That his love had become my compass. I folded it and placed it in the same shoebox, one that now lived in a locked drawer in my office. The box that once held only pain now held proof of survival. Last year on my 30th birthday I got a letter. Handwritten. From her. Inside was a photo of me, Sam, and Eli at a playground. She had captured it without me noticing. Below the photo she wrote, "This is the first time I've seen you smile like you weren't carrying the weight of me. I hope one day I can be a part of that smile. But even if I never am, I am so proud of you. You were never too much. I was never enough." I read it. Once. Twice. Then I placed it in the box. I don't know what comes next. Maybe nothing. Maybe coffee once a year. A slow rebuild. A cautious trust. Or maybe we remain distant, quiet satellites in each other's lives, orbiting without collision. But I do know this. I am not the girl she left behind. I am the woman who stayed. Stayed with myself. Stayed with the pain. Stayed long enough to heal. And I am finally free.